I'll bring the regular meeting of the Simsbury Board of Education to order on May 14, 2013. And with that, we have recognitions. Mr. Curtis.
Thank you very much. And I would first like to introduce Angela Griffin and Cindy Rem, two familiar faces to us here today. And they're gonna, I'm gonna hand this over to them for a recognition. But on an annual basis, the Connecticut Arts Administrator Association selects individuals from our school community who have demonstrated outstanding advocacy for the arts. And they are there to recognize those folks for us this evening. So thank you very much, Cindy and Angela.
Sure. Well, these are our wonderful honorees. This is Vicente Garcia.
And this is Eileen O'Neill.
Speak about Vicente a little bit. Vicente is community. I think we all know that. I think we know who he is through his role as our master artist in our community, our sculptor, our creator of that wonderful bicycle that is beautifying our bikeway. Vicente and his lovely wife Cassandra, who is here with him, moved to our community in 1995. And I do remember receiving an email, probably from Cassandra, she's the social director, to introduce herself and Vicente. They were moving to our community from Texas, and that she and he wanted to meet us, greet us, and welcome us to their studio and to learn ways that they could be involved with arts education in Simsbury, particularly with the children. Vicente's visits to our school, all of our schools, started immediately, way back then, and he pretty much modeled expectations for all the visiting artists, and there's been hundreds of them since he did this. And he did so by letting children know that artists are our parents, our neighbors, our friends. They're not these obscure people in museums. Honestly, that hadn't been happening in Simsbury so much prior to Vicente coming. And it set a precedent. So expectations for visiting artists were to talk about that, to talk about their art, to show how their magic was created. And when Vicente goes into school with his own pottery wheel, it's pie eyes. Our little second graders they can't believe the magic that he makes. And he talks about it not so much from making an object, but from expression, from why he wants to do this, why it's important to him, not so much the pot itself. He has provided so much professional development for the art faculty. He taught our art teachers how to throw. We didn't hire any potters. We hired sculptors and 3D artists. They wanted to throw, but he was diligent. He taught them how to throw. Now we have a pottery program. He accepts every year apprentices into his studio from our public schools. He provides them with opportunities for honors art. He is, of course, a master teaching artist in the Simsbury Arts Academy. Every session, I have not roped him into summer yet because of fishing and family time. I've been trying, but
you're not going to stop.
He does instead. He personally selects all of the summer pottery teachers. They've all been fabulous. They've all studied with him. They've all been his apprentices or his technicians, and he tells me what to do. He tells me to hire them, and I do. And it's always been fantastic. I could go on for a long time. I don't have a long time, and I know you have a long meeting. So, this certificate of recognition and appreciation is presented by the Connecticut Arts Administrators Association to Vicente Garcia for outstanding support and advocacy of the arts in Simsbury, Connecticut. Connecticut's Celebrations of Arts Advocacy, 2012-13.
Thank you so much for your collaborative approach. We greatly appreciate it.
And I am here to present Eileen O'Neill, who is a wonderful part of our community as well. And Cindy and I have to think very carefully about when we select arts advocates to represent our community. And Eileen kept coming across my mind over and over again. First of all, she exemplifies and models what it means to be a lifelong learner in the arts and in music. And in addition to having children who've come through our fabulous system and then have performed at high levels themselves, Eileen also performs on a weekly basis in her church choir. She supports us through attending multiple performances. She even chaperones us. She even goes with us on trips and chaperone as a chaperone. And she also is a strong advocate and supporter of the music program, music and performing arts program here in our school system. And that is absolutely critical for who we are as community members and parents. And we so appreciate community members like Eileen and others who support us in this way. So it is Eileen also shared with me that when she was in high school, she was voted most musical when she was in high school. And I find that interesting. We're about to honor our high school seniors as they're graduating, and it's interesting to see how people continue with that and they follow that throughout their lives. And you know, as I said, Eileen herself is not a music educator, but she models who we want to be and how we want to treasure the arts in our community. So it is with great pride that I also present to Eileen this certificate of recognition from the Connecticut Arts Administrators Association. And I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Simsbury Music and Performing Arts Program for your constant advocacy and for your excellence that you continue to support us. Thank you very much. You're very welcome.
It's a lot of fun. It's very addictive. You will not stop afterwards.
I'm ready. Can I even bring some of my closest colleagues?
Bring them on.
Great retreat idea.
And yes, Eileen, you know what? I have heard your beautiful voice so many times, so it doesn't surprise me that I still need work in the next few times. So. Very nice. Congratulations, both of you. Great.
Thank you very much.
We have one more individual we'd like to recognize. We have Sarah Milligan here with us this evening. Sarah is one of our extremely talented music teachers at Tooten Hills Elementary School. And Sarah recently had a research article published by the National Association for Music Education, which is a wonderfully large organization. And Angela, if you could give a little background on that, and we'd like to recognize Sarah for her efforts.
Yes. Thank you for letting me recognize Sarah for this. Because it's not every day that we have one of our music teachers or any music teachers for that fact recognized in this national publication. And the NACME organization is without a doubt one of the largest organizations that supports and represents music education in our country. And Sarah wrote an article in collaboration with Dr. Hansen from the Hart School, and it was specifically focusing on holistic literacy and music literacy, which is something we actually were in the process of looking at in our professional development about a year ago. Sarah took that on her own. She and Dr. Hansen, they worked collaboratively on that, but it is an absolute honor to submit an article to this publication, and the fact that it's very thoughtful. It not only was focused on music, but also focusing on holistic literacy and reading. And as we're approaching the Common Core, I think how relevant this is and how important this is and how pertinent it is. In addition to the fact that, in addition to her many responsibilities that she has here, that she also took the time to pursue this on her own and to pursue this independently. And I just thought she should be recognized for being published in a national.
Great.
Congratulations. Great.
Sarah, to Angela's point, in all the busyness and the multiple responsibilities that teachers have, what inspired you to go ahead and take the time and effort to collaborate?
Well, being in the elementary school, as a music teacher, I always knew that what we do as music educators, especially in the elementary school, is so relevant and correlates with what's happening in the general classrooms. Auditory skills that are needed when you are a young child. You hear language from the moment you were born, and the idea of sound before sight is an internationally accepted method for music education, and we use some of the same language in music education decoding and prosody and fluency. And I just wanted to show that what I'm already doing and keeping the integrity of music education is enhancing the things that are happening in our general education classes.
Great. Thank you very much for your efforts, Sarah.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Very good. All right. Moving on to Board and Administrative Communications. Oh, I'm sorry. Welcome to stay.
Thank you.
A nice night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's the funnest part about voting. That's right. I just wanted to know. Maybe Mikey looked.
I'm just, before we get to public audience, I realize it's 7:15, and I'll just make a PSA announcement to those watching home. You have 45 minutes if you have not voted yet. Polls will close, and voting takes place at Henry James Memorial School. With that, we will move on to public audience. Anyone wishing to address the board may do so. None. We will move on to Board and Administrative Communications, and we will start with Kristen. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. Well, over the weekend, the spring play Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead was put on, and that was very good. And then right now, we're in our last week of AP testing. And on Thursday, we have the Simsbury Scholars Ceremony, which is for students who have made high honors for the first 3 quarters or are in the top 5% of their class. And then Friday is band's last concert, which is their Pops concert, so they play like fun music. And then Saturday is junior prom, and Tuesday is orchestra's last concert, and then the following Friday is senior outing. So there's a lot going on right now.
Quite a bit going on. Good. All right. Susan.
I actually do have something to share tonight. I was lucky enough to be part of Junior Achievement Day at Tariffville School. And it's a great organization that comes in, and we took over Mr. Baker's school for most of the day. And I had Mr. Wade's son in my classroom. I got a lovely thank you signed by all the kids. But we spent the day talking. Each grade level did something somewhat different, but it was basically based on the economy. And so I had 3rd grade, Mrs. McKenna's class, and they were fantastic and very welcoming. And I can't even stress how much fun it was for me. But I did all my homework, and I got in there, and we taught 5 lessons, and we learned about city planning. And hopefully your son told you some of it. But we had a great day, and I would love to do it again. I understand they do it at Latimer, and that Squadron's going to get it for the upper grades shortly.
June 14th.
June 14th. Ensign Bickford has signed on to sponsor with them. Simsbury Bank sponsored it at Tariffville, and the Hartford, I believe, sponsors it at Latimer. So it's a great community school partnership, and it was a day very well spent for me. I had a great time. The kids were fabulous.
Is this the first time that we've done this?
This is the second year.
Second time.
Big hit. The kids really love it.
Yeah, it was a great day. A lot of fun.
Aren't you involved in achievement?
I am, yeah, actually.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
I'm part of the Entrepreneurial Academy at the Hartford every week on Mondays, and it's actually coming to an end. Next Monday's our last session, so the company is being dissolved, but we've been running our own company selling socks with faces on it for the last 4 months or so, yeah. So it's a student-led business, and the Hartford has kind of put it on for us, but it is a junior achievement program.
Great.
It's a fabulous organization.
Good. Thank you. Nothing?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Todd.
Look for me.
Fine.
Nothing,
Michael.
thanks.
Tara.
I have something I would like to talk about. The curriculum committee got together. We met last week. We were fortunate enough to be investigating the culinary arts department at the high school and the program that they run there that is so well run and so exciting for the kids who are involved in it, because they can learn all aspects of culinary business. They learn how to to get a meal plan within cents for each item on the meal, including an egg that you use for they get it down to the dollar to figure out how much profit they can make on a meal. They talk about what food groups that will work together. They talk about how to set a table. They have all these different levels, and all these kids learn everything you need to know to run a business, to run a restaurant. And it's really the safety, cleanliness, all of the things that they need to know. It's really a wonderful program run by Chef Santino. And we had a wonderful time. We ended up having lunch, which was a senior project for 2 girls who had a team together, and they had, this was their final exam, and we benefited from it, and it was delicious, and it was 3 courses, and fun. It was nice, and the table was setting, and the theme of the room, and the tables were set perfectly, and the food was delicious.
These were both culinary 3 and or 4 students, and it was their senior final exam is what they put on. And as Tara explains, they have to create what the atmosphere will look like, everything from color schemes and centerpieces to the meal plan, and it all has to equal a certain amount, as you're explaining. And the kids, and all of the kids in the kitchen, the 2 that are the main chefs for the day, create the meal, but everybody else has a particular job. And we actually got to go back to the kitchen and saw what they were doing, and it was a great little field trip for the Board of Ed Curriculum Committee. And we'll have to think about more of those.
I have to say, there was a lovely drink that we had with lunch, and I was having my daughter's confirmation the next day. So I asked what was in it, and the head chef comes out and tells me exactly what's in the drink, and it was really.
Lemonade ginger. It was ginger.
It was
limeade
and ginger ale and mint sprigs and lime.
Crystal Light.
Fresh
Nice.
lime.
Crystal Light.
And, well, I couldn't get Crystal Light, so I used regular limeade.
Oh, very good. So
but it was.
So you took away something from our.
But I took something from them. They taught me something, and I went through 3 pitchers of it.
Oh, wow.
The next day.
And many of these students actually get out of this with credits from Johnson & Wales College, and they get a nice accreditation to the Culinary Institute of
It's our affiliation with both Johnson & Wales and
the Culinary Institute of America.
So there's opportunities, as you've seen through programs of studies and conversations that we've had, but there's half-year courses, bake shop, cultures and cuisines, and then there's the culinary strand where students engage in it, full-year courses up to 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years. That get them through a pretty intensive experience in culinary arts.
And I think what was really neat to note, too, was that our 2 chefs, both who put so much time and effort into this meal for us, one is going into, I'm going to get it wrong, the Marines?
Yes.
And the other is going to be a pediatric nurse. So not necessarily staying in the culinary track, but absolutely love the program there. So it's something for everybody.
And these luncheons actually are, they send invitations out to faculty around the district, and so there's 3 different seatings that you can go to. It starts at 11:30.
I went last week.
Did you go? Okay.
I heard your experience was
so he had to go.
and you pay for it.
Right.
It's some.
Yes.
There's
the kids take it so serious.
cashier and
I had an opportunity to go in the back as well and talk to,
it was great.
Good to see. These are the programs that round out
Right.
our offerings that we talk about at our comprehensive high school.
Career
So
and
that
it's career-based too.
readiness.
Absolutely. How long is Tom Santino with us?
25 years.
5 years. 25
fabulous.
years. Donning that chef's hat and apron.
Yeah.
He does a
Looking
great
forward
job.
to another good meal at mock admissions.
Yes, they do another. That's coming up.
That's right.
Yeah, on the 23rd, for those who might want to attend.
Right.
That's worth a mention. Mock admissions night.
Yes, the 23rd.
Good. Glad you enjoyed.
I do have one other item. As you know, May is Bike Safety Month, and we've had a wonderful opportunity to partner with the Simsbury Free Bike Committee. And it all really started last spring, where we were contacted by Patty Smith and asked if there would be any gym teachers, PE teachers, that would be interested in becoming certified bike safety trainers. And we sent two of our PE teachers, one from Tooten and one from Latimer Lane. And it was pretty exciting what they had learned about it to begin thinking about a curriculum for our 4th graders. So last summer, they put together a pilot unit, And it's been implemented this year both because of those two teachers at Tooten and Latimer. And in fact, we were able to rent bikes, 25 bikes, and we've had some donated to us, some bikes donated as well. And we're trying to create a fleet of bikes because being that this was a pilot at Tooten and Latimer, we're looking to expand it next year to Squadron and Terriffill and Central School for our fourth graders around bike safety. And Steve Twitchell, actually, our fleet of bikes that we had this year, he put them in a truck and was able to transport them from school to school. But we're actually looking at ways to really enhance the program and do some fundraising, potentially to buy helmets. We have to have hairnets for the helmets, and a trailer, so that if we, over time, we're able to get about 30 bikes together, have a trailer that we could store them in, and we can move them from school to school to school. And again, it culminated with the bike ride to school day at Latimer this week, and at Tooten, I believe, this week as well.
And you had good weather.
Yeah, I think it held off a little bit. I wasn't able to be there.
Are there particular size bikes they're looking for if people were cleaning out their garages?
You know, it's interesting because I have a neighbor that was moving and I saw 2 bikes on the front yard. I'm like, I should pick them up, but I don't know what size. But we can find that out. Obviously, 4th grade, there's some bigger bikes and some littler bikes that they could have. But just trying to find ways. We may be looking at some of our grant funds that we typically use for enhancing our climbing walls, and we're pretty well outfitted for those. And we're thinking that we might be able to use some of that money in which to purchase a bike or 2 each year, and over a few years own our own bikes in which to be able to do this and really teach our students about bike safety. So and the other piece I want to say is Rich Keegan, who is also a PE teacher. He's now at Squadron Line. He's actually the liaison. He's representing the schools on this town committee for us and keeping us posted of the activities. And they're really appreciative of the fact that we have a school link to the
Very
work
nice
that they're
collaborative
doing.
to a town initiative. Yeah.
Really good.
So more to come on that, but really is, I think, a great opportunity to really build in the knowledge and skills around bike safety for our students in town.
Great, you had a good day and good participation, and look forward to doing this at the other schools.
Right.
Very good.
And even at the secondary level, looking to potentially do some after-school clubs where kids may have their own bikes where they can ride them to school, but actually engaging kids in some real safety ways of, experience biking.
So which 2 schools had the bike to school day?
Tooten and Latimer.
Tooten and Latimer, that was last week.
That was right on the 8th.
That was
was on the 8th.
Just Latimer.
Oh, okay, I thought Tooten was doing it as well. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. But Latimer was the one. And it's so convenient with the bike trail there and everything right near them. Really
Great initiative.
So.
Health and safety, wonderful. Susan?
Nothing at this time.
Burke? All right. Mr. Curtis?
Yes, 2 things. One, I wanted to pass along as a follow-up to earlier presentation that our Simsbury teacher evaluation and professional growth plan that we submitted to the state. The feedback date came and we received a glowing report from the state. Approval of the plan with no recommended changes needed. So I just do want to take the opportunity to thank Aaron and Sue for their collaborative work with our teacher leaders and our teachers on this to move that forward. It's been a huge effort, a huge focus of our work this year. Scott, Meg, have been involved in the process as well, and I think now is the work of teaching our teachers about the plan and implementing it in the fall. And a lot of work still to come, but I think something that we're proud of, and we stuck to what we believe in here in Simsbury and built it around our teaching standards, and I think that was the smartest decision we made in moving this work forward in its initial stages. So I did want to pass my thanks along to the both of you for your great work and leadership with that plan. I mean, more to come, certainly, but I think not a lot of people were in the position that Simsbury was in to receive that kind of feedback. So that was kind of nice.
That's great. And in a timely fashion, too.
Right.
Which is important.
Yeah. The second piece is, I think, positive news, but a little bit bittersweet. Both Scott Dunn, elementary principal at Squadron Line, assistant principal at Squadron Line, and Chris Tramberg, assistant principal at Simsbury High School, have taken new leadership positions in other districts. Mr. Tramberg will be the new principal of Avon High School, and Scott will be the assistant of a K-2 school, Spalding Elementary School in Suffield. And I think that both these positions are great fits for their individual abilities, and we wish them well. They've done great things in their time here in Simsbury, and certainly been valuable employees who have made many connections with people. And the realization is that you bring in talented individuals in assistant principal positions, and they aspire to be principals. And I know that we'll have great interest in both those positions, and the processes are being defined now, and we'll move forward and look for great candidates to fill those spots. So I wanted to share that with the board. I know in the personnel section we have Scott's resignation to formally approve tonight.
Right, good.
So.
Well, we always seem to have our administrators move on to other positions, and that's credit to Simsbury Public Schools. And
sometimes they come back.
They said, certainly do. Comes right out of my mouth. Absolutely. They are right here.
Oh, great.
Absolutely. I was wondering.
Good.
Great. That's all I have.
Good. Thank you, Matt. And I just have three quick things. I attended the staff recognition that the Simsbury Public Schools puts on every end of April at Beacon Hill School for staff recognition and for the retirements. And it's a very, very lovely event, and very unique to Simsbury Public Schools. And those with years of service were recognized with this, and those that retired also. And I'm not going to quote how many and how many years. I can't do that math in my head, but it's always very, very lovely and to see them. And also, I attended the SEA dinner that they had recently, and again, they were recognized by at least 200 staff and faculty, and for retirements and years of service. So two both very nice events for those that culminate years. And on the legislative front, I wish I could say it was so nice as the others, but it's been very, very busy with about 4 weeks to go. The legislature is due to adjourn because of a short session on June 5th. So this is really the crunch time, as you're all aware of. And I've been busy at the LOB and the Capitol, and had the opportunity to meet with Senator Larry Cafaro yesterday about, obviously, the education portion of the governor's budget. And on Friday, we'll be doing this again, meeting with other legislators. And I will also be part of a contingent of council members meeting them with also. So a lot of the topics involving education and cuts to the budget and what can possibly be restored are topics of very much of interest. And I also had the opportunity yesterday to do a taping with members of the coalition that we belong to, All Our Children Lose, and CABE, CAPS, CAS, and CASBO are part of this coalition. So we were here at SCTV. We did about a half-hour taping. Ian Baldwin, who is our media consultant, interviewed us, and we really talked about the state of education in Connecticut and what was going on in Simsbury. So this will be aired through 165 districts. So I do encourage you to watch it to get a perspective of what is going on. It's important that residents do see this and legislators, because this really just affects where we are going with the state of education reform after this legislative session. And then on to even a more nicer note, I would like to just recognize, last week was Teacher Appreciation Week Day, May 7th, and and I've also seen articles that it's Teacher Appreciation Month, so for what it's worth, I'll take Teacher Appreciation Month. And with that, I would like to say a heartfelt thank you on behalf of the Board of Education to our staff and faculty and administrators that are sitting here for all you do and your diligence and your commitment to Simsbury Public Schools. Again, there are so many of you in so many years, but it's something that you will recognize obviously one day, but from where we sit, you were recognized all year. So thank you very much for all of you that are out there, and I hope you convey those words to your staffs. So that's it. And we will move on now to recommended actions. With that, we have Exhibit 1, approval of minutes of April 23rd, 2013 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll move on to personnel, Exhibit 2.
So I do want to note that in your folders, there is an updated personnel exhibit, and it's also on your electronic devices. But I do have 4 resignations for your consideration tonight. The first of Catherine Zahara, who's a music teacher, specifically in the chorus program at Simsbury High School. She's been with Simsbury Public Schools for 4 years. The second, which Matt alluded to earlier, Scott Dunn. Of course, we know he's currently the assistant principal at Squadron Line, and he's been with Simsbury for 9 years. The third is Lisa Hamill, kindergarten teacher at Squadron Line. Ms. Hamill's been with us for 4 years. And finally, Adam Schumacher, special education teacher at Simsbury High School, who's been in that role for 5 years. So it's the recommendation that the Board of Education move to accept the resignations of Catherine Zahara, effective June 26, 2013, and Scott Dunn, Lisa Hamill, and Adam Schumacher, effective June 30th, 2013.
Very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Need a motion? Need a motion?
You need it first.
A motion? Who would like to make the motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll move on now to Exhibit 3, approval of unaffiliated salary adjustments. And Mike, I believe you will.
Yeah, I'll lead the way if I can. I think in your package you have a little bit of information on this. On unaffiliated, which is the first item on our agenda tonight for salary adjustments, a little bit of background. Our unaffiliated employees were the first to increase the employee pension plan contribution by 0.5% in 12 and 13, and will also increase an additional 0.5% in 13-14. Additionally, the adjustments that you see in front of you regarding central office administrators are restoring the ratio of our salaries to the SASA positions. And if you recall, we've historically tried to maintain some sort of mathematical relationship, kind of keep everybody in step a little bit so nobody gets too far up. So that's, there's not a lot of background. Basically, I'll deal with the first few on your sheet here. And those are the, let me actually start with item 3. The assistant superintendent is at a 2% increase. And the virtually everybody on the in that group is also at a 2% increase, with the exception of our business manager, Burke LeClaire. So maybe what I'll do, if I can, is if I can make the motions for everybody except Burke.
Right.
And then I'll come back to Burke for a minute.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with item 3. And should I do each of these individually?
Yeah.
Do we have to, we have to
Yeah.
go to each
Yeah.
one? Okay. So I'm going to start with item 3. Move to set the 2013-14 salary for the assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction at $157,089.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, motion passes.
And item 4, move to set the 2013-14 salary for the assistant superintendent for administration and human resource development at $152,337.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, motion passes.
Okay, good, thank you. And then the rest of them pertain to the business manager, and a couple we can get out of the way. 1 and 5, I think we'll take first. Move that the business manager's contribution to the Town of Simsbury Board of Education pension plan be increased by 0.5% for the 2012 and 2013 fiscal year.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, motion passes.
And also, with respect to the business manager, move that the business manager's contribution to the Town of Simsbury Board of Education pension plan be increased by 0.5% for the 2013-2014 fiscal year.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, motion passes.
And I'm going to move now to item 7. Move that the unaffiliated employee contributions to the Town of Simsbury Board of Education plan be increased by 0.5% for 2013-2014 fiscal year.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, motion passes.
Now, let me come back to to Burke for a minute, our business manager. Also in your package should be a bit of a spreadsheet or chart, if you will. Do they have that?
No, whatever I gave you.
Who will?
They have the motion.
All right, so let me, before I explain what I'm not sure this is in it, so let me just kind of cover it a little bit. If you recall the transition from Dave Holden to Burke Leclerc, we started Burke Leclerc in this new position. We started him at a salary, and in our discussions with our business manager, we recognized that in order to put him on effectively a step program, recognizing his increasing years of experience, that we would increase his salary at a slightly larger amount each year as he gained seniority over the GWI increases which would otherwise apply. Okay, so for example, last year we granted a step increase of 5.2% and a GWI increase of 1.75%, which brought him in at 6.96%. The recommendation for this year is to add an additional step amount of 5.23%, roughly the same as last year, an additional GWI increase of 1.28%, roughly 0.5% less than what was granted last year, and that brings him in at a total increase of 6.51% for the current, for 13-14, pardon me. So he was at the 6.96% and last year and 6.51% for the coming year. Okay? So that's just to explain why it's a little out of step with everything else. It's a little beyond the GWI increase. It's this recognition of increasing seniority that our business manager is gaining. So that gets me to motion number 6, which will just recognize the new base salary of $13.14. So the motion is move to set the 2013 and 2014 salary for the business manager at $136,708.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, motion passes.
Thank you. And the last motion,
Because it's retro.
that's retro, yeah.
Yeah.
We have to do the retro for 12,
Correct.
13, pardon me. We also have to do this retroactive increase for 12-13, which is consistent with the numbers that I just gave you, and that's item 2 on your list. Move to set the 2012-13 salary for the business manager at $128,354.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, motion passes.
My apologies for getting those out of order. And the last one now is number 8 on your list, and this is the unaffiliated Board of Ed employees, the increase for 13-14, and that's a 2.5% increase. So the motion is move that the salary range for the unaffiliated Board of Education employees for the 2013-14 fiscal year be increased by 2.5%.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion passes.
Yeah,
We
missed that.
We need like an overriding vote, I think, on all of them because we didn't actually vote.
So we didn't vote, we just did that.
You didn't vote on the individual ones?
Didn't vote on the individual?
We really did.
Lydia asked for discussion, and then we said motion
hearing none,
passes. So I think can we just
Can we
Katie, go
do it
back
all in
and
one
vote.
fell swoop?
Sure.
Can we do it like that, or do you want me to do it individually?
Oh, no, not again. Do them all at once. Not again, not again.
We'll do them all together. I apologize.
All right, so the motion will be,
Items 1 through 8 as read previously.
right.
Yeah.
We got, so Tom will make that motion. You're okay with Katie?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good housekeeping, thank you, Susan.
Thank you very
you.
much. And nobody said anything to me.
Well, you were on a roll.
I tried to.
You were kind of on a roll.
I was trying to follow with my,
We figured we'd catch you at the end.
at the end.
Oh, I thought you
We're staying on you.
Moving along here. Following Mike. Thank you, Mike, for that presentation. Following along.
Thanks, Mike.
Next time, maybe my colleagues.
Michael could
All right, we'll
Would you like us to
we'll
stop
kick
it
you.
early?
We'll just get Robert's Rules of Order, put it right there, and you'll
Well,
get
right next to me, so.
Just throw it
Use
out.
the book and bathroom.
Did you realize that? You could have written me a note, that's okay. All right, on to.
Put our monitors in place.
On to exhibit 4. we are approval of collective bargaining unit agreement between Simsbury Board of Ed and the Simsbury Federation of Educational Personnel.
Well, I'll introduce that. Maybe Burke will talk a little bit about it, since Burke and Matt were sort of leading the way with a little bit of input from the committee. So it's not going to be Burke.
No, I was just pointing out that it was Sue and I were at the bargaining table.
Okay.
And Matt and Sue and I were all part of the planning process.
All right, thank you for pointing that out. I know you're going to be kicked. I think it's fair to say that the SFEP contract process was very collaborative. The union made changes to the salary structure that it desired, but we were still able to meet the Board of Education's key goals. Burke was in frequent contact with me and with the other members of the Personnel Negotiations Committee, and we had lots of back and forth dialogue about it, but I would say that it was a good process. Again, I'd like to use the word collaborative. There is an increase, the contract calls for an increase in employee defined benefit pension plan contribution over the 3-year life of the contract by a total of 2%, which is 2 percentage points, and in fact a virtually 100% increase over the contribution they're making now. It does allow us to introduce a defined contribution plan for new hires within the SFEP group, which is an important component, and we've been moving in that direction over the last number of years on pension issues. And it also gets us an additional health insurance contribution. So Burke or Sue, do you want to add? I think the Exhibit 4 pretty much sets it out in detail.
This would be for the general wage increase, would be retroactive to last July 1st. Would be 2.25% general wage in year 1, 2.5% in year 2, and 2% in the 3rd year. And as Mike mentioned earlier, from the point of view of the fact that there's an increase in what they pay towards their pension, we really looked at the net general wage that the individual person would be seeing, and it would be 1.75 to 2% and 1% for those people who are pension eligible, and that's for the general wage portion. And there is step movement for those who are eligible, and in this particular contract, we had there's one category of or classification basically that we moved the schedule slightly, which is something that they sought to be more consistent with the requirements for the staff who hold that, and that was something we were able to do within the context of the goals of the 30 people we were able to work through these issues.
The only other thing I would add is I think it's consistent with the overall modest increases that we've been able to come to agreement with our employee groups for the last number of years. I think, through the involvement of everybody at central office and the guidance of the people in the buildings, we have a good relationship with all our employee groups, and I think they understand and appreciate the circumstances that taxpayers are in. And we've been able to successfully negotiate what I think are fair and modest agreements throughout the process. So this reflects that. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Just, Burke, one more time on the kind of the collapsing of the number of steps and the realignment for this Category 2 position. I really didn't understand. I just want to make sure I understand it, to be honest.
Sure.
And if it's something we should do offline, I'm happy to do that as well.
Historically, the current contract has 6 steps, so you would pass through each of those levels. But it also says that when someone is hired based on their qualifications, they can be placed at one of those steps, so they don't always start at the first step.
Yep. Okay.
From a practical point of view, what they helped share with us was that many times, people were starting towards the middle, so to just have 3 steps ultimately we thought made
more practical sense. More practical sense. Okay.
And then within the categories, there's Secretary 1, Secretary 2, and 3. One of those was paid very, Category 2 and 3 were very similar, and yet Category 1 was a lot higher. So we kind of helped to space out that in a more even fashion to correspond with the qualifications for items that we're trying to. So those were things that they suggested, and we were able to make it work within the parameters that we were given.
Thank you. That's it.
Anyone else?
Make the motion?
Absolutely.
Move that the Board of Education ratify the proposed changes in the collective bargaining agreement between the Simsbury Board of Education and the Simsbury Federation of Educational Personnel for the period July 1, 2012 through June 30th, 2015.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mike.
Just one other comment I'll make is that we are in a year when we start our negotiations with our larger employee groups, so that'll be starting up shortly. I think we have to provide notice to the state at the beginning of that, late July, if I recall. And the Personnel Negotiation Committee members ought to get their coffee out and be prepared for a lot of evening meetings and some long sessions. We'd love to hear from any board member who has any specific things or topics you'd like to discuss or have us include in our thinking prior to that negotiation. We are aware of the issue in the center of our steps where our salary levels are out of sync with competitive districts. We're below, in other words, on a number of districts at the middle band, if you will, of our salary step levels. So we're very aware of that, and we'll be working on that in this round of discussions. So we'll provide you with updates as necessary, but it's going to be another busy year of a lot of meetings.
Absolutely. And when do we start this? August?
Well, we'll start the information part for the board. We'll start it now, basically.
Now, right. And then,
but we have to give notification to the state, I think, toward the end of the third week of July, roughly,
right,
that the process starts, and we'll be in negotiation through the end of September, roughly, and then in mediation for October.
Yep.
Hopefully have it wrapped up.
alrighty.
The first part, the end of October is, I think, the date.
That's our timeline.
Has
yeah.
to be, yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
So we'll
Very
keep you
good.
posted.
All right, we'll look
Thanks,
forward
Mike.
to that. We'll have plenty of coffee ready for the Personnel Negotiations Committee. All right, thank you, Mike. Moving on to Exhibit 5, 2013-2014 textbook adoption.
Yes, at the April 23rd Board of Ed meeting, I brought forward a geometry book and an AP psychology book for your review. At this point, there has been no amendments to our original request, and I would recommend that the board consider adopting our request, approve our request for the adoption of the geometry book and the AP psychology book.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Books are still here if anyone is interested.
I didn't carry them in, but they are right behind.
So if any board members are interested in viewing the books. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Get your eye on me. We are now on to Exhibit 6, the adoption of healthy food and beverage for 2013-2014. And that,
We have participated in this state program that the standards were set up in 2006, and we show that there's estimated reimbursement for our district of approximately $21,837 based on our current year program numbers. And the healthy food and beverage program requires the board to certify this on an annual basis. And then once we start the school year, the actual year, we also have to report through the Director of Nutrition Services how we have gone about to verify and certify that we're only selling these products and that meet these standards. Also, just wanted to relay that our Director of Nutrition Services has told me that the USDA is also contemplating something similar. So it's not been set up, but going forward, it might not be an opt-in. This is something that the towns are able to opt in, and we have done it for the past number of years, and we're recommending it going forward this year again. So if there's any other questions on that?
very good. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
You need to read the motion.
Oh, I have to read it? I can read it. Move that pursuant to Section 3 of Public Act 06-63, the Simsbury Board of Education hereby certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under our jurisdiction and not exempted from the nutritional standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education on August 1st, 2006 will meet said standards. Such certification shall include food not exempted from said nutritional standards and offered for sale to students at all times in all schools from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, and any fundraising activities on school premises. Whether or not school-sponsored excluded from this certification is food that is sold at events after the end of the regular school day or weekends and not sold from vending machines or school store.
Very good, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Kristen, any comments on that? Since,
well, I know a lot of people who complain when certain foods are taken away, but I personally, such as I know earlier, I heard a lot of complaints about the bacon. A lot of complaints about that, but personally, I'm fine with it.
I'm going to ask Jacob and Patrick your thoughts.
Well, I know with the school store we've had to change a lot of the inventory recently as a result of this kind of thing. So we've been undergoing a lot of changes.
Such as what did you have to change?
A lot of stuff. Gum has gone, chips are gone, candy's gone, mints are gone. All that kind of thing is.
So what have you replaced it with?
We're kind of figuring that out.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process. But yeah, bacon for sure, that's been a common complaint. And a lot of people saying that Michelle Obama is like wrecking their lunch.
No, first we.
You asked. You did ask.
First we blame the president on so many ills and woes that are going on in this country regarding education, and now we blame the first lady for taking away the bacon. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I just wanted to point out the provision that says it excludes foods sold at like after-school events and stuff. I would agree with that because then you have to look at like the football games and all the vending they do there, which I think if you try to impose these provisions on that becomes you're going to lose more or less all the food you sell at those events. So I would agree with that.
All righty, very very good.
I just actually have a question about this now.
Absolutely.
If the school sells bacon at an additional, for an additional charge on sandwiches or whatever it is.
It already was.
It already was when we were selling bacon. And you get a 10-cent, I think is it 10 cents per meal, is it for this?
Yeah, it works out to be 10 cents per meal.
Is this a good thing revenue-wise for the,
I'll let Bert answer the revenue question on that.
Well, there's really two different programs. One is the change that the USDA made to the meal patterns this past fall, and this is something that's been happening for several years previously. And it was a state level program. So one was an opt-in, the other was not something we had a choice on. So bacon was something we didn't have a choice on, and isn't impacted by this funding. This is an incentive for us to not offer sodas and other types of snacks and things that would not meet these guidelines. From a pure revenue point of view, we certainly could possibly sell more, and this might not make up for it. But the overall goal here is to improve the quality and the value from a nutritional standpoint. So it's kind of an apples and oranges question.
Which are much healthier than bacon.
You can't look at it.
Have that look. Is it something you can sell to fellow
business
classmates? Absolutely. I mean, you're in JA. This might be something that you can look at. So anyway, I'm going to impose it to our principal sitting here. Any comments from your young students?
I don't think so.
They don't know.
They don't know. What they don't know won't hurt them. There's no lobby.
Get them early.
There's no lobby for bacon in Terriffill right now.
Good. All right.
As Bert said, this was something that we've been doing since 2006.
This is different than.
At that point, as principal of the middle school, when we had Gatorade machines and we had soda machines, they noticed it then. But it's been since 2006, so it's not been noticed so much.
And it's not the bacon.
It's not the bacon.
It's not the bacon.
It's the vending machines.
Did we get a second on my motion?
I'll second, yeah.
Yeah,
I did.
a second.
Very good. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to Exhibit 7, Career and Technical Innovation Grant.
Yes, I'll present that to the board tonight. Some of you may remember in the past, we've had opportunities for various kinds of grants from the State Department of Education. We had one several years ago to develop student success plans, and we also had another one to create the financial literacy course. So this is a similar kind of opportunity that was put forward to districts in the career and technical education area, and these are innovation grants. And this one happened to be in several different areas: agricultural education, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, development of practices for the student success plan, which we've already done, e-commerce, social media and mobile devices, comprehensive high school, issues in aging and early childhood, and externships for educators. So in working with Joncia Lytwinick and looking at the program that we have a human development course, and it's a collaboration with our with UConn. And the two areas that we're looking to put a grant in by the end of this week is in issues in aging and early childhood, because we're looking to also create a new pathway for students in this area. This will look familiar to you in our Pathways, our book, but we're looking to put together a human services strand for students to follow, which would give information and learning and knowledge and skills to students from birth to death. And it really will give opportunities for real life, authentic experiences, working through early childhood, preschool opportunities, but also geriatrics, getting out and doing some work in the community. So it's really, this is just a draft, it's within the grant. The state is offering up to $40,000 for each of the grants, and we're putting in about $40,000 for the early childhood and close to maybe $15,000 for the aging component of it. So that would enhance our school program. It's not, obviously we're putting it in, it's a competitive grant, not sure that we would get it, but would really think that this would enhance our program, not only through the programming, just giving kids the full life cycle opportunities to learn. Careers that kids could take off on are just enormous in this field right now. So I would ask the board to consider moving this forward so that we can place these grants for consideration through the State Department of Connecticut State Department of Education.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Can you read this? Yes.
Why don't one of you guys do it?
We're so quick to jump.
Quick on the draw, Tara.
Move that Simsbury Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to act as the board's agent in applying for the Career and Technical Education Innovation Grant and to commit to continuing the innovations developed in the grant award.
Second.
Any discussion? I have a question on this. This is just a one-year grant. This is for 2012 through 20.
Right. Once it's awarded, there's very specific guidelines in which you have to spend the monies. Right. So there's various ways in which to enhance facilities and to provide materials for the program as well. So it's fast moving. Yes.
Right. So it's just
typically 1 year. Yes.
Okay. It's a one-year competitive grant. Okay.
I also want to mention that my comment would be, I'm glad that we are still investigating, finding grants, and writing grants, because they take time. They're a ton of time, and there are a lot of effort needed to be made by everybody involved. And it's important that we keep looking for these, because it's a way that we can help the taxpayers to maximize our education.
Absolutely.
So thank you for finding it and
Good point, Tara. Thank you.
move forward.
So, Erin, what you're saying about this, though, is that we're not going to fund something that we then now have to find money for when the grant expires. This is going to
It will all
enhance
be
the
in
program
place,
as it is.
correct. And, you know, they're, right, just like our financial literacy.
Right.
It took a couple of years before it actually was in place, but it became embedded in our actual program of studies, and we knew that it would over time. And through the 8-period day, there's opportunities. But this is connected to the biomedical strand. It's connected to a variety of different existing courses that we have as well.
And we've been thinking about getting into that childhood,
Correct.
Encouraging that childhood education piece too.
Right.
Early childhood education piece.
Got it.
Over the years.
All right. Very good. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was very good.
Good job.
Doing really good, Lance.
Motion passes. Thank you. All right, we are now on to information and reports. We're at Exhibit 8, School Climate Update, Elementary Schools, and that's Sue.
That is Sue.
So good evening, and if you recall back in October, I shared with the board the district climate plan, which certainly is a legislative requirement. However, at the heart of that is really what are we doing to strengthen our efforts to promote positive school climate, connections and relationships between staff, students, parents, and the larger community. So as a part of that district climate plan, individual schools have also developed their individual school climate plans and their corresponding committees to take a look at these efforts and to determine what themes, if any, we're seeing in school climate, and again, what planning efforts can we make to enhance the great work that we're already doing. One of the first things I'd like to do is just to thank the parents, students, and faculty and staff of all of our 7 schools, because just recently those folks affected in grades 3, 6, 8, and 12 recently took a survey to give us feedback on these climate efforts. And we are actually in the process of working with the National School Climate Center, as I had shared with the board before, and they are going to be giving us this information back for our planning purposes. So thank you for the diligence of completing those surveys, as those are going to give us some great information about how to enhance our efforts. But tonight what I really wanted to do, and Meg Evans, principal of Squadron Line Elementary, and Scott Baker, principal of Terrafil, are both here to help me with this presentation, but it's really about celebration and to celebrate the incredible things that are going on. So certainly in October I shared with you that this legislation does address some of our anti-bullying and bullying legislation and all of that, but a huge component of this is on the other end, again, around school climate. And so with that, this is really a celebration of those efforts. So what we're going to do is take an in-depth look at each elementary school, and certainly Scott and Meg will speak about their individual schools. And I just want to give the board a flavor of the great work that's happening each and every day with and for kids around these efforts. So please feel free during the presentation to stop me if you have any questions, and then there'll also be the opportunity at the end to ask questions as well. So we're going to start with Central School, and there's great pictures there for your reference as well. One of the huge components that I do want to share is all of the character education and school climate efforts are really based on the 12 national pillars, and we take a look at those around character education, and we really embed that into our practices. So with Central Elementary, certainly there are the character assemblies. They start off the year with those. There's also throughout the year awards assemblies, all hands on deck for character. You'll notice that each school has a theme or a symbol, and for Central, that is the sailboat. There's also monthly awards for principals' perseverance for those students who are really showing great effort generally, but also specifically to these pillars of character trees that really showcase the hands that are earned by students for doing kind and helpful things and being supportive of these efforts. And at Central, there's also various mentoring opportunities that students can participate in. So they have student mentors at the 6th grade level, which are very exciting. There's also mentors from the Hartford Insurance Group that volunteer during lunch and during recess time that provide some of this adult mentorship. And we also have a mentorship with Central and with the Henry James students as well, that they will come down and from Henry James as alums of Central School and really work with the students on different aspects.
Primarily because they can walk from Henry James to Central.
Well, that is a bonus. There's no doubt that
like to do that, I'm sure.
There's no doubt that there's a bonus. But again, just a couple of highlights, and you see some of those in action in these pictures. You know, at Latimer Lane, their symbol is really the gate, and you can see a picture of that gate, which stands for Great Achievement Today and Every Day. To date, 149 students have been recognized, and they actually pass through the gate of good character. So you can see the gate standing there. It's very symbolic. There's a lot of pomp and circumstance, but it's really a privilege and a great recognition for the students of Latimer Lane as they pass through the gate of being recognized recognized for demonstrating the values of the school that they hold in such high regard. There's also a student leadership team, and that's really composed of 6th graders and 5th graders. And they've been very influential in updating the anti-bullying pledge at Latimer, and they really do this in an unveiling at these gate ceremonies. So it's huge, and they display this pledge, students sign it, and really making a recommitment to these efforts. In addition, there's this whole concept of how full is your bucket, and you may have read some of these texts yourselves, but how do you add to the overall goodness and the culture and the kindness to any kind of community, in this case Latimer. So they do different readings from different texts, and they focus on filling up your bucket, and they actually have slips of papers and physical buckets about what kind acts and what kinds of wonderful things are you doing to enhance the community at Latimer Lane School. Finally, the Responsive Classroom, which is a nationally recognized and award-winning program, but it really provides some foundational work for recognizing and reinforcing all of the positive aspects. So it's catching students doing the great things and reinforcing those for the likelihood that those increase. And there's different elements to this, different strategies that classroom teachers, that paraprofessionals, that custodians, that people in the cafeteria can really employ and put their arms around. There is definitely a correlation between implementing some of these strategies and a decrease in office referrals that they have found at Latimer. So some really great data to support the work that's being done there. I will hand it over to Meg, who will talk specifically about Squadron.
An integral part of Squadron Line is our SHINE program that involves, as many of the other schools, all of the adults that are associated at working there, from the classroom teachers to administrators to custodians, cafeteria workers, paraprofessionals. Every adult in the building is considered a teacher, and when you demonstrate one of our character ideals of respect, responsibility, or kindness, you can earn a sun. And we have those in various you can see by the different colors. We have yellow suns are anywhere in the building you can earn one, and then we have different colors for on the bus, cafeteria, recess, things of that nature. And then they've added the orange sun, where the upperclassmen members of student council can then honor other students for the positive behavior. So again, I think the common theme from all the programs throughout the schools is when you have everybody involved tying into character ideals, that's when students have the most success, and so that's certainly true at Squadron. I think some of the things that we've done this year to enhance the character education programs is that we've had 2 SHINE lessons per classroom led by our school climate committee members. The first one was more activity-based, of trying to identify, what's the difference between bullying and somebody being mean or making poor choices. Who are your supports that you can go to? What are some behaviors and things that you can do to stand up for yourself, and what it means to be a bystander, and how can you get support in standing up for behaviors, and really encourage students, because sometimes standing up to somebody by yourself can be difficult, but if you can get a friend to help you stand up to somebody, that's kind of gives you more power, and the person's more able to stop making some poor choices. So that was kind of our first round of instruction. And then the second class lessons were more literature-based, where we found some great books that talked about students who either were making poor choices and what they needed to do to recognize that behavior and stop it, or what it felt like to be on the receiving end. And sometimes it was nice, because when you got to talk about personal experiences, students had some difficulties, but when you got to talk about what happened to somebody else in a book, the discussion was really rich, so that was exciting. And we asked all the students feedback about which books we should keep and which ones we should change, and the good news is we don't have to change a lot, so that was good news. And then we had one lesson that we asked teachers to teach, and those are more activity bases of scenarios, and we took some from a program, and then we tailored it to the needs, and taking a look at the discipline issues that we've had, and tried to incorporate those into those lessons, to say, what would you do if on the bus you saw somebody saying some unkind words, and then how would you do it? So not only what would you do, but how would you do it? We had a presentation to the PTO that demonstrated the travel of a sun, of what happens from when the teacher gives it out to the students, and then they sign a Shine book, and then student council members will call the parents of the children who got recognized to let them know that they were recognized. It gets hung on the wall. Certain spots on the wall, you're able to get a prize, and then once the wall is filled, they get a special prize, and then we start the process all over. So it was quite exciting to share that. And then something new that we piloted this year that we will definitely implement across grade levels was this sociogram. And what that does is it asks students in the classroom, who do you like to play with? Who might you not want to play with? Who is a good working partner? Who is somebody who you wouldn't want to work with? And we compile the data, and it can really give you a good sense of what your class is like, and who are those students who are really connected to their classmates, either in a social area or in an academic area, and who are those students who really don't have those supports. And then it allows the teachers and the adults to really target interventions to see what can happen so that we can make sure that all students are connected to the classroom. That was facilitated by our school psychologists, and due to the success that we had this year, that we want to make sure that we offer it to all classrooms, and that will be done in the fall. So,
a quick question. I know that when Scott was integral actually when he was at Squadron in implementing the Shine program, and I remember when we kicked it off that first year and talking about the traits to the sixth graders and saying, gee, won't it be nice in a few years when you have students that know the program and the common language is built? What role do the older students play? Students in 4, 5, and 6 at Squadron, or Scott answered that at Terrafil, and kind of teaching that culture to the students, because that's really what we're talking about, is that learning culture and that culture of acceptance and expectation.
I think having that common language is crucial because they really do buy into it. I mean, you can ask any kid at Squadron what are our character ideals, and they can rattle that off to you. And it even becomes part of their dialogue, and when you find that kids are able to recognize kids for positive behavior, and I think the older students really take pride when you can say that to them. You're the leaders of our school, and if you're going to be a mentor to another student, or if you're going to be able to take on this leadership role, you have to demonstrate these ideals because you're kind of our spokespersons, and we can't have you be making poor choices and represent our school. And the kids really take pride in that, and they can tell you what it means to be respectful, responsible, and kind. And it's neat because I think just like at home as a parent, when you say something to your child, it's one thing, but when your teacher says it, it has such more value to it. The same holds true at school. I think that sometimes when teachers say things, they certainly listen to it, but when it comes from their peers, it just adds so much more meaning. So when your bus buddy is calling you out for, not necessarily having shining behavior, they can turn it around, and you don't necessarily have to go through a liturgy of all these different behaviors. You can just say, are you demonstrating shining behavior? Nope. And that can turn it around immediately. So I think it has a huge impact, and I'm sure you would find that across the schools.
Thank you.
I think just to piggyback on what Matt, you're saying, as well as with Meg, Sue had mentioned the characteristics of character education. When we started this work about 8 years ago, it was exactly what you're talking about, that common language and that ability that kids, as they move from elementary, they all don't have to be the same. You can see already a gate and a sun and those kinds of things. But clearly the terminology, as you'll see through this presentation and the next one, is that kids are learning the same respect, responsibility, honesty, kindness, those kinds of things that actually permeate all the way from the elementary schools, middle school, and on. So.
And it's great to see that continuity. Because it's the continuity of values, and it may look different in each physical setting, but it's just nice to see that play out with our students, and it's something that they embrace.
And I think, like Latimer, we have data to support. We've had a significant decrease in our referrals as well, and what's nice is now, because the referrals are so low, our next phase next year is to really to start take a look and see who are those kids. So if there's 60 kids that are having difficulties, is it 60 students who are making all those, is it different people, or is it the same kids that have some trends, and what do we need to do differently to help those students who are still having difficulties making good choices? But we couldn't do that before if your numbers are large, so I think that's another success.
Certainly. Scott, would you like to comment on Terrafil?
Of course I would.
I know.
So, before I begin, at Terrafil, we're building on the shoulders of giants. Chris Murdoch was instrumental in getting Terrafil national recognition for our character program. You can see the banner that we have hanging up in the hallway in 2005 was recognized 1 out of 10 schools in the entire country for their character ed program. But you don't get to that level just by having one nice program and keeping it going. It's the whole concept of continual improvement. And this year, just wanted to speak to some of the fine-tuning we're doing to our program, beginning with the nice lanyards. I think we have the nicest lanyards in the district. But PTO got us those for Teacher Appreciation Week this week, and so I wanted to thank them. But I think they look great.
The problem is that everybody's handing us those lanyards. We have one from the high school. We'll get them from Derek, so we have to wear all of them.
You have to switch them. You have to switch them as you go from school to school.
Yeah, we get multiple badges, so.
Yes, but so some of the fine tuning we're doing. There's always work to do in moving a really good program to a great program. A note is that part of when you're a nationally recognized program is providing support to other schools. I worked with 3 principals from other towns this year on character who've come to see our program and see what we do and spread our practices. And that's something that I think is really important with leadership. But some fine-tuning that we've done, we've added a parent to our climb committee, which has proved very valuable because something we never knew is the communication for recognition. Our kids get feet because our program is climb, is sometimes the parents wouldn't know why they got it. So they wanted to be able to reinforce at home the behaviors that happened at school. So, and that no one ever said anything because people were happy with the program. But by having a parent on the committee and saying, well, what if we did this? That was a fine tune we could do. We're adjusting our Better Choice slips for next year to be able to better track data. So we're going to have more fine-grained data on when kids don't make the best choices. And then one other thing, most schools have book buddies. And you know the book buddies where the older kids come down and read to the kids. And one tweak we made this year was to have climb buddies. And so not only do they come down and do work with, reading with and helping kids read with books, but helping with behavior. And so, if first grade sometimes is having a tough time at recess, the first grade teacher will call up the 5th grade teacher who is partnered up with and say, hey, can you guys come out to recess with us? And we're going to do climb buddies today. And they're going to teach some games and do that. So to speak to what Matt was saying, this is an overt effort for us to provide leadership for our 5th and 6th grade students, to teach our kindergarten and first grade students some of those behaviors that we like to see. That's something I'm really proud about. And along that line, about every other month, we have mixed age groups that get together. So it'll be one classroom, all kindergarten through 6th grade kids, and we mix them up and we do activities so that students can get to know each other in a better way, so that when they're on the bus together, they know each other, and there's that exchange. So that's a neat thing. So we do a lot of that stuff, giving out feet, principals awards, and those kinds of things that have given our program national recognition. But I did want to talk real briefly just about school climate. It goes beyond just that and teaching behavior, but it also goes to looking at your whole population and making sure you're responsive to the whole population. And so one of the things that you probably know is Terriffill schools are at around 20% free and reduced lunch students. The district, I believe, is at around 6 or 7. And so this is something we're very aware of at Terriffill School. And when we had Dana Tice come on board, I had a conversation with her about a breakfast program. And so we got that off the ground in March. And today, it's between like 35 and 50 kids every day come in and are having breakfast. And these are kids who didn't get breakfast before then, I'm sure of it. And so then when you talk about school climate, we're providing more, we're providing for their needs and having them be more ready, and therefore they'll buy more into the school, and so that's one piece of school climate. The other piece, you talked about grants. Mr. Carpy and I have partnered together, and we wrote a grant for something called 100 Mile Club, where we are working on responsibility for your own bodies and respect for your body. And, we're waiting to hear back whether or not we were awarded that grant. But a parent also partnered up with us on that as well. And then the third thing I just wanted to pass along is every grade level needs to have a citizenship project. And so like the first graders at the start of the year got money and supplies for a Humane Society. 4th grade right now is going to be leading a big initiative to adopt a big cat. for a big cat wildlife preserve out in Minnesota. We're hoping to raise enough money to maybe adopt a tiger or something like that. So those are the kinds of things we're doing. We did this huge community raking project throughout the community for seniors in the Terriffill area that's gotten sidelines 2 years in a row now by the big storms, because that was a little too much work for but hopefully we'll be back at it next year. So I could go on. We're very proud of our program, and like I said, it's one where we're trying to be leaders and help educate other schools as well.
I think just the fact that we have that K-6 configuration, that's a bit unique to Simsbury now, that we have, and we continue to think about and develop different roles for our 5th and 6th graders in relation to the rest of the school is a really great way to get at this, which we've been doing. It's nice to see.
Absolutely. And then just finally, I'd like to highlight some of the great work being done at Tooten Hills, through their school climate committee. And Scott had mentioned that there is parent involvement, and that is the case in all 5 elementary schools, actually all 7 schools, that we have parental components as well as, if it's developmentally appropriate, student components as well. But they really had 3 main goals. The first was to increase awareness of the Character Express. So Tooten Hills, it's all about the train, as we know. And they've done a lot of different things to increase that awareness, whether that be from actually stating the Character Express, the guiding beliefs and the purpose, and in every classroom in those specific, very public places across the school. They've also give a plethora of different awards, individual and classroom awards, through their Character Conductor Club, which is also displayed at the school entrance. They too really found that parents needed to be kept in the loop of why their sons and daughters were being recognized, so they could reinforce that behavior at home. But additionally, it's also provided just an increased awareness to the parent and guardian community about what the Character Express is all about. They often highlight one of the character ideals in the Whistle Stop, which is their newsletter, and reinforce this also school-wide through their school assemblies. So they have definitely increased the awareness of Character Express and really getting the community buy-in, because that's what it's all about. We call it school climate, but that school climate encompasses so much more just beyond that school building. Their second goal was really to promote the positive interaction between and among students, as well as students in the greater community. So certainly they participate in things like book buddies, like bus buddies, so that the younger students have those older role models which to refer to in those unstructured settings on the bus. They also take community-based field trips at every grade level. They're also doing a wonderful program, Project Outreach, with the students, certainly, and the parents, and they have a charitable relationship with the Hartford Men's Homeless Shelter that they have established, and enhance an ongoing relationship with them. So that's just a couple of the efforts there. And then finally, just developing and continuing to strengthen these personal senses of responsibility and really identification within the school community. So that's where these special mentoring the special mentoring happens with the older students and the younger students, but also giving students a sense of purpose and a job to do within school climate is very important. So whether that be their student council program and participation in that, they have bus arrival callers at Tooten Hills, which is really a privilege given to the 5th and 6th grade students. The 6th graders do all of the morning announcements, and again, that's seen as a privilege and a positive rite to passage, but how they can show their influence there. They also have cafeteria table washers, which is actually a really cool thing, and it's a big deal, grades 1 through 6, to be given that responsibility, a flag hoisting team. So, all of those special connections that students are making, that really is important. So when you take back and you take a look at all of these incredible efforts, it really is impressive. And I think what it speaks to is really the systemic efforts of the district to really focus on the whole child that is so reflected in our district vision and core beliefs, and to determine in what ways are we setting certainly high academic expectations for our students, but also behavioral expectations and how those play out not only in our student relationships, but in our adult relationships with students. But, to piggyback of some of Scott's points, it's really about meeting all of the different needs, social, behavioral, emotional, and academic of our students, and really making sure that there is that feeling of connectedness for every student in the building and with the adults, and that as the adults we're modeling the type of climate that we want to have in our schools and what we want to aspire to as far as strengthening that. So we're really excited about this great work that's being realized each and every day. These, again, are just some celebratory highlights, but I think worth mentioning because, there's a lot with the legislation is a negative correlation around bullying, and we don't emphasize enough, I think, the incredible efforts that are happening on the positive end, and really what a difference that makes each and every day for our students, for our adults, for our parents, but also the greater community, most certainly. So again, these are the elementary efforts. At our next Board of Ed meeting on the 28th, we'll also be hearing about the great things that are happening regarding school climate at Henry James as well as Simsbury High School. But I invite any questions or comments at this time from board members.
I would just say, I'm so glad to hear of how you guys are involving the 5th and 6th graders in a better capacity. Because while it's a blessing, it's also a curse. You're in that school for 7 years, you keep hearing shine, 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 or whatever it may be. And sometimes you get deaf to it, yes, and the kids forget. And so to give them some power in the program is such a huge step. I think that's so great. So I compliment you on finding great ways of involving them. Because it really is, to keep them invested is so big.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Good work. I just want one comment on this. I'm glad that you brought this up about bullying, because many times, and I'm just going to use an example when I'm testifying at the Capitol and other colleagues around the state, and as you know, the bullying provisions in law can take in different references to in different terms, but some of the C words that, and I'll keep in my mind and use again, we talk about climate, culture, character, connectedness, continuity, community, and it's all about that student success piece, and it's so important, to relay that to, especially to legislators when they do talk about things that are going on in schools that do affect any piece of education reform that trickles down right to the individual classroom, right through the teacher. So thank you very much for this very, complex but very interesting bucket, beat, climb, shine, express, hands. Did I get it?
It's pretty good, Lydia.
Don't test me on it, but thank you.
You brought up the bullying word, right? And I think some people, since we're on TV, it'd be good to hear. If you look at the numbers, there's not very many documented cases, and I think some people have a hard time understanding that. But it's because of the positive school climates that we have, that when a problem arises, we get parents together, students together, and we attempt to solve that problem before we get to the procedural legislative pieces that involve the official reporting, and we try to get the psychologists involved, get the classroom teachers, get the parents in, and our approach across all of our schools is that, and that's why you don't see a huge number of official cases, because usually we're able to resolve things before they get to that point.
Right. I think when you problem solve from the lens that we want kids to be successful, how are we going to get there? And you do that first, and you do that through the avenue of the cultures that you're building at your schools, will continue to have success. Again, not like we don't have problems and have situations that we need to communicate with parents and deal with and problem solve, but I think it's how you address, as you said, Scott, address that problem solving. Great.
Scott, thank you also for you mentioned the breakfast, but thank you for your diligence in that, because I think that's a very positive thing for a lot of kids.
And this is a program that is moving through the elementary schools as well.
Right. So thank you very much for all your work on that, because I do think that's something, it's great for Simsbury to have.
That's great, fantastic.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Very good.
Thanks, Scott.
All right. We are now on to Exhibit 9, school calendars. One of the board's
Favorite
Favorite
topics.
topics.
Right.
And with that,
So I'll tee that up for Aaron, but as a result, of we've become all too familiar with over the course of the last 2 years, I think, significant events in the fall that have impacted the calendar and followed this year by a pretty significant winter. Where we've tacked school days on to the end of the year. So we sought feedback from our parent community, from our teacher community. We generated a survey in working with our policy subcommittee to move forward about really taking a look at our vacation periods with some focused questions and create some potential alternate options. So Aaron's going to go through that data and through some recommendations that we have in considering next year's calendar and the year after. So I'm going to turn that over to Aaron.
Sure. This is always an interesting topic and one that generates a lot of responses. So through our survey that went out, we had approximately 1,500 responses to the survey, which is huge considering we don't always get that many. But as Matt said, we're looking at, I'm going to share with you the data from the survey and look at some recommendations for our calendar for next year and for the 2014-15, and then we'll talk about other issues beyond, as well as how we will communicate this to parents and faculty based on our discussion tonight. So there were 4 questions that were asked on the survey, and the first question that was asked was around, would you prefer a 4-day holiday weekend to include Monday and Tuesday rather than a full week of vacation in February? Meaning kids would be out of school, obviously Saturday, Sunday, but Monday, Tuesday, back in school Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in February. And you can see the response to that, 61% said yes, 30% no, and 9% no preference. The second question that was asked, do you wish to continue to have a school calendar that has full weeks taken as vacation periods in February and April with makeup days that would be added at the end of the school year? So full week in February, full week in April, and then any extra days added on in June. You can see 32% at yes and 60% no, with 8% with no preference.
So that's what we're doing today.
That's exactly, you're right. That's exactly right.
Are they happy with what we're doing today?
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. The third question, the answer's no. According to the third question, would you prefer to have a school calendar that has full weeks taken as vacation periods in February and April with up to 5 makeup days added to the end of the year and any days beyond that would be taken from the April vacation? 40% said yes, 54% no. So again, full weeks February, April, 5 extra days maybe at the end, but anything beyond that we've experienced in the last couple of years would then begin to cut into April. And again, not interested. The no was higher percentage. And then the fourth question we wanted to put out there to get some information, knowing that this was something not to be considered immediately, but at least would give us some foundational information as we think about this potential or possibility down the road. Would you support not having a vacation period in February and April, but instead having a vacation period in March? And again, this would not be possible until our new Smarter Balanced Assessment period that goes into effect in spring of 2015. But again, trying to get people. And so 51% said yes, 41% no, and 8% no preference. So interesting with that.
Yeah, kind of more split. And we don't know what the new testing will really play out to be, so it's hard to really go there.
That's right. So I think you should have some calendars in your folders. Do they have new calendars?
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm going to walk you through. So as you can see, the first question. Oh, they're on the computers? Okay. As you can see, there was the first question that was asked. I'll just go back to number 1. There really was a high percentage, 61% of people were saying, let's go with that shortened holiday break in February, keep the April break, with 61% of people saying yes. So what I would do is
this. Just to interrupt for 1 second, I'm sorry, but this also holds kind of true to the whole going back to the calendar committee that met and their focus was the last day of school being earlier.
Correct.
And being earlier in June. And this holds true, these survey results hold true to that still.
Correct.
They maintain that.
Correct. So what we have right now is we have school ending on June 11th in our proposed calendar for 2000. In our existing In our calendar. existing calendar for 13-14, we have school, the last day of school for students on June 11th. What we realized when we went back and began to put some of our early release days and looking at the calendar, we realized we had school in session on December 23rd, a Monday, and then vacation. And we would be the only district in school on that Monday, and somehow it was an oversight. And so the first that I would draw your attention to
Few people brought that to my attention.
is that we would like to correct that. We would like to make a correction on the calendar and have no school on December 23rd, a Monday, but add that student day to June, at the end in June, which would be June 12th. Then if we go with the first question that was asked on the survey, so that we would have the long weekend in February and the April vacation, we would have school in session on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, February 19, 20, and 21. So from June 12th, we would remove 3 days from June, the June 10th, 11th, and 12th, which would then leave school ending on Monday, June 9th, 2014. That's a mistake. 2014.
Right.
Next year. That's next year. That's not this year. Sorry, I don't know how. A lot of eyes look at that. Okay. A lot of eyes looking at it. Nobody picks it up. So we are talking June of 2014.
Right.
You're not changing graduation from June 24th this year. We're not
No,
changing.
I'm not.
No. Just to clarify.
PowerPoint.
We should change it right now. I'll change the slide. Get off the slide.
These kids have already booked out.
So what we would, based on the survey results and taking all of this into consideration, we would recommend that we embrace the 4-day weekend, the long weekend in February, maintain that April vacation, and we want to maintain that April vacation right now and not make changes to a March, because we haven't experienced the Smarter Balanced Assessment, and we believe collectively, and teachers, we've had the opportunity to have seen the practice test in the last couple of weeks, that we really need to experience it at least one time in in the spring of 2015 to get a better sense of what it means.
And we still have some CMT testing that's
we have
not
1
going
year
away yet.
left. That's we do have a window for CMT testing in spring of 2014. The Smarter Balanced is identified to take place the last 12 weeks. That's yet to be determined, and how we use that time in which to do it. So it really could go from March through the end of the year, or the beginning of March through the end of the year.
We don't know the number of tests
We
that
don't
you
know
need to
yet.
sit for at this
We
point.
don't
There's
know
just a
yet.
lot of unknowns.
Too many unknowns to make that decision at this point.
And it wasn't overwhelming on
and
the
it
survey.
wasn't.
So-
But that's good information for us as we
Going forward.
Sure.
think ahead, because we can go back to that data at another time.
With all new parents by the time we look at it.
So what we're looking at, obviously, is for your consideration for these changes, the December for this next year, the December date changed to the end, but that long February date. And then in 2014-15, you should have 2 calendars. You should have 13-14, 14-15 that reflect that February vacation date.
The last day of school is the 9th?
9th of June.
For next
On
year.
both, actually, on
On
both
both.
calendars.
On both.
Yep.
Which would really allow a reasonable number of
To the 8th, right?
Snow days.
snow days and stay within that week. You
That
know.
would be very nice.
The write-up did say the 8th.
I just wanted, that's why I'm
Now
asking.
I'm really confused.
That's why I'm asking.
Yes,
Okay.
you're right. You're right. The calendars.
It's easy.
You look at the actual calendar.
Right.
So,
Calendar,
get out of
the
the PowerPoint.
9th?
I think it is supposed to be the 8th. It is the 8th.
Calendar that I'm looking at,
It does say the 9th on this one. It's supposed to be the June,
8th?
yeah.
It is June. Okay.
So the written motion would be correct.
Is right.
Written motion is correct. I did read the motion. The motion was correct.
Okay.
I didn't
So
look at the calendar.
Slash and stuff, okay.
Lydia,
With that,
at this point, can we move?
wait, hold on, okay, we've got that.
So anyway, that's, yes, so that would be our recommendations. So
Continued, all
the
right.
last day of school in 2014 is the 9th. The last day of school in 2015 would be the 8th.
Got that.
We're missing
All right.
anything.
So, I'd like a motion to amend the agenda and move school calendars to an action item.
So So move to amend agenda and move the school calendars to an action item.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right,
Aye.
so moved. All right, with that now.
You gonna read it?
So that
Tara, you
just-
gonna read it?
No, I'd like. I can't.
Thank you.
All right. Do we need to do something?
I think we're okay. I think the main purpose for the 2014-15 is to get the February. If we're not correct on the June 8th or 9th, we will correct that at an
February
upcoming.
break.
But we also haven't put in our PD days in that calendar as well. So we will have to look at that.
We
But
don't need to vote on that calendar today. The one we
So we
need
need to revise 13-14.
That's the one we need to revise today.
All right, so we'll take the first motion.
Move to revise the 2013-14 school calendar and close school on December 23rd, 2013. Hold school in session February 19th through the 21st, 2014, and schedule the last day of school on June 9th, 2014.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right.
You can do the next motion. You don't have to set the last day of
No.
school.
No, we do not, because that just.
So move to revise the 2014-15 school calendar to hold school in session on February 18th to the 20th, 2015.
Should be 15.
And
Stop,
schedule
stop.
the
No,
last.
just stop right there. Stop right there.
2015.
Second.
And schedule.
No, we're not
No,
going to
we
do
don't-
that
right,
because we
got
don't
that
know.
period. All right.
Second. Second. Here for.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right.
So just one last piece to this, and we will be better in communicating this with the public, but we will definitely get information out to our parents via the superintendent listserv and our principal newsletters. Make sure it comes from the principals as well. And we will do so for our faculty through our district listserv, our principal messages, and our In the Loop monthly newsletter that we put out to teachers.
I think we'll put a link right to the questions and the, the PowerPoint
Correct.
slides that show the data as well,
That's
so
great.
people can see what it's grounded in.
Make sure we get it through to the PTOs as well.
Correct.
Right. Very good.
For
All
their
right,
planning
thank you.
purposes.
Erin.
Last.
Thank you, Policy Committee. I know school calendars is
Thank you
always
very
one
much. Thank you.
one of those areas. Lots of work. Thank you. All right, Exhibit 10, we will be tabling this until the May 28th meeting. So I'd like to have a motion.
Move to, do you want to move a motion
Yeah.
to table this?
Yes, I'd like a motion to move the
This item,
Exhibit 10.
proposed building used fee schedule to the May 28th board meeting.
Subsequent meeting. what I'm gonna
Right,
say.
do I hear a motion? Mike, second?
Make the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. This will be on the meeting for May 28th. All righty,
Burke just sent that.
very good.
You wanna
And
say that?
Yep.
I have another
Yeah.
piece of information here. Burke is not with us. He is over at Henry James. The unofficial result of the voting that closed at 8 p.m. is 68% yes, and with a 7% turnout of voters. So, our budget passed.
There you go.
There were no
Congratulations.
questions. Usually come
Very,
up
very
more
good.
questions.
So, all righty.
Alrighty.
Thank
That
you
does
for all
seem
of those who voted to support the Board of Education budget.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the work
And
of
our town.
administration. and the
Absolutely.
town. Very good. Very good.
Motion to adjourn?
We are now on to our second public audience. Anyone wishing to address? Please, you've been waiting so patiently.
Wherever you would like. Hold it to yourself.
I know I didn't see you.
My name is Elaine Sewell Dorer, and I have a fifth grader at Squadron Line. I realize there is a state-required number of days in the school year, and that the end of the school year for this year cannot be changed. I also participated in the superintendent's recent survey on possible changes to the school calendar. My concern is how snow days affect the end of the year with 2 half-days in a row. This year, we're asking our children to go for a half-day on Friday, June 21st, and a half-day on Monday, June 24th. I understand that the second to the last school day is a teacher development day to provide teachers with information and materials for the upcoming school year that will start 2 months in the future. I do not understand why it has to be linked to the final day of school. It is particularly onerous this year, given how long the year has had to be extended, and that the half-days fall on a Friday and a Monday, so we're asking our already numb children to go to school for a half-day on a Friday, but wait, school's not over. You have to go for another half-day on Monday. The Teacher Development Day the Teacher Development Day should remain on its originally scheduled day, no matter how many snow days are added. Based on the other discussions that we just heard, we could end up with the same half-day wrapped weekends in June 2014 and June 2015 if the final day in 2015 is June 8th, which is a Monday.
Yes.
I checked my calendar.
It is a Monday.
I asked the Board of Education and the superintendent to permanently end the practice of finishing the school year with 2 half-days. That's it. Thank you. I don't know what to do. I've never done this before.
You did a great job.
Appreciate your feedback.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All righty. With that being said, our next Board of Education meeting will be on Tuesday, May 28th, 2013, in this room. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you and good evening.